Cleo.
I'm glad that you said that because I think more people need to hear other men say it. Because, as
Okay.
women, we could talk about it
Yeah.
a lot, which I know you guys listen to us about a lot of stuff. But I think it's important for other men to hear other men talk about it too. That way they know it's not us women just telling y'all need to
Right.
be more
Right.
emotional or do this and that, because we mean
Yeah.
well. But,
So
you know,
okay. So this is a good point. This is gonna get
this is
good,
so
right?
funny.
So all right, all right. Let me be clear about this. That in this country, we're gonna take a little step back and we're gonna in this country as a black man, I personally feel that it is one of the most challenging paths that you can walk. Just with everyday threats of certain things that may affect us. And I also know that in a different way, but probably to the same magnitude, it happens for black women. However, when it happens to black women, you all voice it, you strategize, and you mobilize, as Killer Mike would say. And as black men, when we are faced with the same kind of hurdles and challenges, whether they're social, economic, political, judicial, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
that we internalize it like it is what it is, and I gotta find a way anyway, and don't nobody care. So why am I gonna tell anybody?
Mhm.
And when we do that, and this is really when you thinking about like teenager turning into adult, and when you really
Mhm.
starting to see what this society's how it's really constructed,
Yeah.
um, that in that space, I learned from myself that I had turned off all of the gauges that measure emotions. Like I just because it I couldn't find a value in living the emotion.
Mm.
Like I couldn't find value in like, man, that makes me sad. Like that makes me mad. Like, but what am I gonna get out of sitting in that? Like I couldn't, as a man, I really couldn't because the way that we kind of look at ourselves is that, oh yeah, women have the right to be
Mhm.
emotional. They're women. That's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah.
As men, it's like I don't really have the right to be
Mhm.
emotional. And when I say emotional, it's
Yeah.
not just like negative emotions, it's
Yeah.
positive emotions too.
Mhm.
Like it because and the reason I might think that, and when I say me, because I used to, and kind of just speaking for a lot of friends and men that I know and that I've talked to about this before,
Mhm.
is that the positive emotions we see kind of get like some pushback as to like you can't be happy and be a man like
Mhm.
that's not your role. Like you don't necessarily have to live that reality. And we're like, oh, okay. Like, on like, and and it's just society, right, perpetuating itself. But
Yeah.
then when I had to like look back and say, all right, Rob, why are you really mad? Like,
Mm.
what are you really mad at? And I thought about the instances, and it was a lot of things that I was mad at something that
Mm.
wasn't necessarily my fault. So
Mm.
there's no way around it. Like it wasn't like certain things that I was either born into or situations I had to face that weren't in my control as an adolescent. I
Yeah.
can't sit here and be mad at myself like it was my fault. Like I
Mhm.
could have done better. Like I was just there,
Yeah.
And I think that once I had a chance to kind of get around that thought
Mhm.
and and kind of look at it from a different perspective, is where a lot of things in my life and financial life started to change.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I started to do was to start to look at the negative events and
Mhm.
find some way to find some gratitude or be grateful for some part or some element of that thing. and
Yeah.
and that enabled me to remind myself what happiness was,
Mm,
what joy was, or also get clarity on why have I chosen to feel a negative emotion when it happened 15 years ago. I'm making a choice to still be mad about it. I'm
yeah.
making a choice to still be sad about it.
Mm,
Like, and understanding that there is an element, and I guess it's called self-sabotage for lack of a better term,
mm-hmm.
where okay, Rob, one, you're human. You have the right to feel whatever you want to feel.
Yeah.
So take off for a second, in a way, take off the burden that being a black man kind of feels like sometimes. You gotta sit the burden down for a second. And at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, you're human and you have the right to experience emotion. And
Mm-hmm.
I just had to like be real with myself about that. And also say to myself that even if I am judged for the
Yeah.
emotion, that I don't give a damn what the judgment
Right.
is.
Yeah.
And that, because that's a big one, because
Mm-hmm.
men will do a whole bunch of stupid stuff to avoid judgment that's too strong for their insecurities, because men have
Mm,
insecurities too.
yeah.
And we will dodge any judgment that kind of pokes at that insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be to say, okay, I don't really feel like doing this, but this is what's cool, so I'm gonna do that. And all the different ways that the decisions that a lot of my counterparts as men have made, that
Yeah.
thinking that okay, I don't really have any other options. So I think with just learning that about myself,
Yeah.
and coming to just an understanding. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what fixes everything, but
Right.
just to have the awareness, it started to help me look at things different. And then
Mm,
it's so funny, like when you look at things different, things start to happen differently too.
yeah.
And come together, and success is, it doesn't seem like a huge mountain anymore. It's just a matter of okay, I gotta be, as long as I'm good to me, the
Mm-hmm.
world and the universe is going to be good to me as well.
Yeah.
um and that's, I think, the missing piece that a lot of young black youth, and especially young black boys, and also adult black men, that's something we're missing, is that in most cases you can get some shiny things, you can get a nice car, you can get a nice house. When it comes down to really being in alignment with the
Mm,
things that are really meant for you, they
yeah.
are never going to happen until you are as good to yourself as you think those things will be to you as well.
Mm,
And that, it took me years. Like once I really started wrestling with these thoughts for real,
mm-hmm.
it took me years to really get to that point where I had the aha moment. It's like, oh Rob, like give yourself a chance to feel something for a change.
Yeah.
Um, and as you said, I would always hear it from women
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, Rob, you're so emotionless. You just make the practical, logical decision, right?" And it wasn't that I was emotionless.
Yeah.
It's just that I didn't see the value in showing my emotions,
Yeah.
and because I felt the whole spectrum of it. I'm human. I can't turn off emotions. I can
Yeah.
just turn off my reaction to them,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
and and so that, realizing that that wasn't as beneficial as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Like it was like it was like choosing the microwave over the oven. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna heat your food up, but I guarantee you that oven cooked food gonna taste a lot better.
Yes.
Um, and that was a space for me that really gave me a lot of personal clarity, that I personally witnessed my life and saw that contributed to the financial growth that I wanted for myself once
Mm-hmm.
I was solid in who I was.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you shared that because I think it's really important. I think as we just do like our regular, like daily things, going to work, coming home, going out
Hmm.
with friends and family, just all that stuff, like we do kind of like suppress our feelings when it comes to certain things. And sometimes we, like you said, you don't see the value in it. And even some of us women, we've done that in our lives too. I even had experience with that where I kind of just sweep things under the rug. I don't feel it's important to really dwell in certain feelings or
Right.
acknowledge them at all.
Right.
But like you mentioned, the microwave and the stove, like eventually you're going to experience some stuff where you're going to be forced to like deal with those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be like scary sometimes. You may
Yep.
feel uncomfortable, nervous, but I feel like that's where growth really happens because it's not healthy to ignore them. Like it's healthy
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge feelings, your emotions. Just like you said, they're not feelings and emotions are not all negative.
Right.
Whether if it's negative or positive, like you have to acknowledge them, be okay with them, like for the moment, meaning like you can't avoid feeling sad or angry about something. Like let the feelings come out. Like if you need to yell, cry, or say
Mm-hmm.
something. I know it depends on the situation, but you have to get it out because if you hold it in, it's just going to like fester inside of you. And then
Right.
you're going to start to have like issues like
Right.
physical, like pain in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start to just feel exhausted all the time, then mentally drained. And like, how can you really level up in different areas of your life if you're like mentally drained? Like, yeah, on the outside, you look
Nah.
like you fine,
Right.
you smiling, going
Mm.
here and going there. And
Right.
when people ask you, how are you? And you say, I'm good, like knowing darn well you
Knowing it.
really not good. And I think we're just used to saying, oh, I'm cool, or I'm good, or I'm okay.
Right.
Or even if it's somebody that's closer to us in our inner circle, even if we have personal conversations with people that are close to us, sometimes we still, hide or not want to show our feelings. But I
Mm-hmm.
think men and women, we're all learning that it's okay to feel and have emotions, and that you're never not going to um, like it's not like you're going to experience certain things in life and then for the rest of your
Mm-hmm.
life you're not going to have to deal with no other feelings or emotions. Like every relationship, not just romantic but like friendships and business relationships and friends and family, like you're going to have to address feelings in all areas of your life. And I feel like when it comes to men, I think more men are starting to realize that it's healthy and it's going to be a benefit to you all
Right.
to really acknowledge them. And I do agree with you when you said you didn't see the value in it. I felt that way before too.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, you got to a point where you realize you can't do that anymore. You can't just avoid or ignore or just hide or cover up certain feelings because something gonna happen where
Yeah.
it's gonna burst out
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to deal
Whew.
with it. And I just feel like I get it. It can be scary and uncomfortable. And sometimes it's hard to talk to people because you don't know who you can really trust, who can
Mm-hmm.
really like keep your information private. Whether if you're
Right.
just talking to a friend or even if you hire, a therapist to talk to, sometimes it's still hard to get the words out because that's how I was. Like, I'm a woman, but I even had times where I didn't want to talk to nobody, like,
Yeah.
period. And I just kind of had this big wall, this shell up,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really hard to break into with any type of connections or relationships. But what I
Right.
realized is like, no, that's not the way to live your life. Yeah, you still got to use discernment and be selective with who you connect yourself with. But that emotion, man, and it's like men, it just makes me happy to hear other men talk about it because
Yeah.
sometimes
Hold
men
up.
see other
Oh, oh.
men.
I can give you a CC exclusive. This is a
Oh,
Cleo Children's exclusive, right?
ooh, I
I'm
got
tell you
the
this.
exclusive from
Look, okay,
Rob B. Rob
I've never
Boyd.
talked about this on. I've never talked about this on a podcast either, and
Mm,
I've done numerous podcasts at this point in life. Okay,
yeah.
here we go.
Hmm.
This is to your point. I I emotionally boiled over 2016.
Mm,
So everything throughout life, um, being where I'm from, in a part of town that I'm from, I've had a lot of friends that fall victim to incarceration, gang violence, everything, right? So that was just a part of life, especially like late middle school through high school. That was just that was every day, like, and it was in a way where kind of background story on me. I played basketball throughout high school, and then went to play a couple years at Howard.
Mhm.
And basketball was the thing that protected my future. It didn't
Mhm.
create my future because I didn't go to the NBA. I didn't go, but it protected my future because
Mhm.
there were people in my neighborhood that are, for a lot of other people, are scary people, but for me, that's my homie from second grade,
Yeah.
and he, like, these individuals always made sure that I never got involved in the
Mhm.
things that they were involved in, and
Yeah.
said, there was always like, "Oh, Rob, you play basketball, like go to practice, man, like go home." Like, it would,
Yeah.
and I was always like, man, I always get left out the fun cool stuff, but it was
Mhm.
actually like protecting my future because I couldn't see as far as to see where that lifestyle, I mean, I knew where it could end, but
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't in tune with the reality of
Mm.
certain things until I got older, and I started
Yeah.
losing friends to this very thing as we got older, and the consequences just got bigger and bigger.
Wow.
Fast forward though,
Mhm.
so that's middle school, high school kind of perspective in life. Then go
Yeah.
to Howard, flip the whole script, the whole. I personally had culture shock, and it's nothing but
Wow.
black people, and I had culture shock, right? Like this is just a different grain of black people here, right?
Yeah.
So it made, in a crazy way, it made me feel slighted by the world
Mm.
as to how we grew up, when I noticed that a lot of other people weren't required to live through the certain things I had to live through. It was almost like a resentment. And I
Mm.
kind of got angry, like, wow, like, dang,
Yeah.
like it's just not, and I wasn't mad that other people had a better life.
Yeah.
I was kind of had a certain feeling about why was I dealt those cards.
Mm.
Um, and then, that kind of happened, and then in 2016, fast forward some more, in 2016, my best friend was back home.
Mhm.
I won't say the wrong side of town, but in different area, and was
Yeah.
killed. And I was actually, at that moment, I was actually in North Carolina because I was
Mm.
down visiting my mom from DC. And
Mm.
and it really just brought my whole world down. This was somebody
Mm.
I played basketball with throughout high
Yeah.
school. He went to ECU. I went to Howard. We were kind of like basketball brothers slash
Yeah.
neighborhood like, my mom was his mom, and his mom was my mom type thing. And
Yeah.
at that point, I really just had a F everything, like,
Mm.
moment, like, F everything. And that's
Yeah.
actually the real story as to why I walked away from my business in DC.
Mm.
Because at that point, I didn't even care about it.
Yeah.
Like, that moment just shook up everything. And I was like, man, here's the business, and y'all great. Y'all continue to do great. I gotta take a time out. I need a full time out right now, like.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, I sat in that for like 6 months. I guess
Mm.
clinically, people would call that depression. Like, I went home, I was in North Carolina,
Yeah.
I was in my mom's house. I didn't leave. I turned my phone off, like no cell phone service.
Wow.
Um, and just had to, like, figure out what my life was about, because everybody and everything that meant something to me was being taken away. It seemed
Mm.
like almost every year. And
Yeah.
then I got a magical phone call, had an opportunity, came to Atlanta, start consulting. Kind of, I won't say it's out of the blue because there's a lot of pieces that led to that phone call, but it
Yeah.
wasn't for anything I applied for. It was kind of just, I had just gotten a new phone. I had just put myself back on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
just got on social media again. This was like 5 or 6 months after this thing happened.
Mm.
And a couple people found out how to get my number, get in contact with me. And I came to Atlanta. And I came to Atlanta And I was like, all right, I got this is my first opportunity to get at least access to corporate America benefits again. I
Yeah.
had been an entrepreneur on my own, so it was like kind of shaky for a second. When you buy your own health insurance and you're getting the cheapest thing out there just to say you got health insurance, but you go to the doctor, it's like $200 to go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the space I was in, and then I started consulting, and it's like the full suite of federal government benefits. I'm like, even though as a consultant, and I was and at 1099, I still could access,
Yeah.
and I did that,
Mm-hmm.
and that enabled me to get access to a therapist. I'm bringing this full circle, okay?
Ooh.
So I could get 5 free sessions of therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and that came with like the employee assistance program. It was like EAP or something.
Mm-hmm.
And on my second visit, like, so my first visit, I was because I was kind of leery about this therapy thing, y'all. So like, because it was just
Yeah.
like, man, I'm about to you don't know my life. Like, I lived through more than you. Like, I was just thinking all these things. Like, how you gonna
Yeah.
tell me about my life when I think it was probably harder than yours? Like, I had
Mm-hmm.
all these things in my brain that just was trying to get me not to believe in this therapy thing.
Yeah.
And so the first visit, I was like, okay, this lady kind of cool. It was a black lady. I made sure she was a black lady. I was like, I ain't talking to nobody but a black woman. I ain't talking to nobody else, right? That was my
Yeah.
rule. That was my guy. Like, I don't even want to talk to another man because it's just like, no, I want to talk to a black woman. So I
Mm-hmm.
went through the system. I literally
Yeah.
looked through the list, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw like Nikki something, and I was like, Nikki with 2 Ks? Oh, she black. She gotta be black, right? That's literally how I picked it, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Dr. Nikki. I'm not trying to slight your name, Dr. Nikki. So, um, so I'm like, okay, like, dang, she okay. That sound right. So I picked her, right?
Yeah.
I had no other reference. I didn't know how to pick a therapist. I just was like, okay, she sound black. I'm gonna pick her. Let's see what this is about.
Yeah.
Went up there, first session. I'm like defensive, right? I'm just sitting there like,
Mm.
what we supposed to do here? What we supposed to talk about? What you gonna ask me? Like, I'm like that,
Yeah.
right? I'm real short. And I'm sure she's used to that because
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
what she does every day. And she says to me, and this is what got me to open up. She says
Mm.
to me, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." And I was like, "What you mean it's gonna be fun?" Like, and I don't know if she did that by design. I don't know if that was just spur of the moment
Yeah.
response to me. But when she said that, it almost was like, it kind of felt like a challenge to
Right.
say like, oh, he like he can't even open it. Like, it almost is like she challenged me to tell her my life, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I got a pretty good feeling about this. So I was like, okay, this is a good meeting. Like, I'm gonna go back to work, but I'm actually gonna come back and do this one more time. And the
Mm.
second time I went back,
Mm-hmm.
I said again, F it, and I told her everything about me, like
Wow.
like as far as what I was afraid of, what caused me pain, what hurt my
Mm.
feelings, why was I like everything, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like machine gun, like I'm spitting it all out. And I'll never forget, I sat there and she was looking at me, and we were like kind of towards the end of the meeting, and she asked me, "Have you ever told anybody that stuff?" I was like, "Nope."
Mm. Wow.
Right? And
Yeah.
I could tell for her that in that moment, she actually didn't know what to say to me,
Mm.
because I went from meeting number one,
Yeah.
super defensive,
Yeah.
to meeting number two. Okay, you want to play this game? Here's all of it, right? That was me still being anti, because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna flood you with my life. You can take this, right?
Yeah.
And when I did that, at the end, I didn't even care about her no more. I was actually just happy that I verbalized all that. Like, it
Yeah.
was literally like dang, Rob, you ain't never said that. This is the first time ever that your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts turn to words.
Wow.
And as far as certain things I was sharing,
Yeah.
and and when that happened, it was like a switch was flipped, and it's like, well, like this ain't that hard to express yourself. Like I just
Yeah.
had to say it. Like
Yeah.
like
That's
who told me this was hard? Like right? And then at that point, like I did the rest of the remaining ones, and
mm-hmm.
then I was like, man, this is like we was actually just having conversations at that point, and I was like, man, therapy is actually kind of dope.
Yeah.
Um, because you can't tell nobody this stuff unless I'm
Right.
like cuckoo crazy, and then you got to
Yeah.
like tell somebody. But if we just like
Yeah.
talk, like this is like
Mm-hmm.
this is easy. Like what?
Yeah.
so so
Mm-hmm.
and then that just experience, even though that's a professional kind of setting,
Yeah.
it opened me up to being more open with the people in my life.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I wasn't just regurgitating my life on everybody, but I
Mm-hmm.
was more expressive,
Yeah.
and I felt kind of like in me internally, like a part of me woke up,
Mm-hmm.
hadn't been awake since I was a kid, as
Yeah.
far as like you said before, just experiencing emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to vocalize what those things may be if you need to. And at that point, that's when I was like, oh, now I understand why all these women been telling us men to go to therapy. I get it now. Because it's
Yes.
not necessarily that the therapist is going to give you an answer. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what therapy's for. Can't
Right.
nobody give you an answer to certain things.
Mm-mm.
It's about the practice of being open and transparent, be, with the thought that doing that is going to help you progress.
Mm.
And that's what it's
Yeah.
really about. Like to not bottle things in, and to let, if bad stuff comes in, you got to let it come out.
Mm-hmm.
And because the more you hold it in, you just a detriment to yourself. Like,
Yeah.
and it's hard to see that
Mm-hmm.
as a black man, because there's just so many things pulling us at us.
Yeah.
And I even have friends that I've shared this kind of story with, and they're still kind of hesitant because
Yeah.
the conditioning is so deep
Yeah.
as
Mm-hmm.
to like the things that we should and shouldn't do, not just
Mm.
as men, but specifically as black men.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of pain that I don't know a lot of us are ready to share.
Mm.
Um, and and I know women do experience these losses too, because these young men that maybe fall to the streets or fall to the system
Mm-hmm.
are the sons and the brothers or the uncles and the dads of women.
Yeah.
However, when as a man yourself,
Mm-hmm.
when you see those things happen, and you know that could have literally been
Mm-hmm.
you, and not
Yeah.
just somebody that was a relative, that could have been me,
Mm-hmm.
the emotional inflection in that is just a little bit different from the experience of a black woman.
Yeah.
And because I was thinking to myself, like, man, like, why did I make it? Why didn't all my friends make it? Why? Well, okay, does that make, like, it was kind of like survivor's remorse.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to really get around that.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was like, man, I kind of feel like I didn't do enough
Mm.
to save them.
Yeah.
And but then it flipped back
Mm-hmm.
in 20 started to flip in 2016 over the last couple of years to now I'm doing everything I can do because they're not here anymore to help
Yeah.
me. And it's a different mentality, just because
Mm-hmm.
I gained a new perspective just from sharing it. And because once you hear something, to think something is one thing, but you say it out loud and
Mm-hmm.
then you hear yourself, it's like, hold on, that don't
Yeah.
sound right. But when I was thinking it was okay. But when I heard it back from me saying it, that sounds stupid. and,
Right.
and that literally has to happen.
Yeah, it sure does. And I'm glad that you didn't stay defensive. I'm glad you took on the challenge and started talking and opening up, because that led to where you are today. I think that's how a lot of people start off in therapy. They are defensive to the point where they won't even go. Or if they do go, they kind of do what you did, kind of just like, not really you there, but you're not there, like really trying to be proactive with it. But I think her saying, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah,
I remember her. It's gonna be a piece of work, huh?
Yeah.
So
and I don't know. I'm not offense to it, but I was
what you mean? It's gonna
what
be
you?
fun.
Yeah, like I'm a science project or something.
Basically, yeah.
And I was like, all right, I got you. I got your science project, and I came back but it all helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely something that I wasn't expecting to have that outcome.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, like that's why still a big fan of therapy. I think it's something that it can help you through some hard phases, but
Yes.
also it could generally be just something where you have a dedicated person that can just help you filter through certain things.
Right.
And it might not be a regular thing, but somebody that you could possibly check in with.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah, it is. And I think, there's more conversations about mental health and seeing a therapist nowadays than it was before. And I think everyone should. I still know people in my own life that are still like even I started seeing a therapist last June for the first time. And just with me talking with friends, it was like, a therapist. If you don't go to church, or girl, if you don't just go to sleep, take a nap, you'll be fine tomorrow. Like, are you serious? Like, no. And it's like, and also you don't have to necessarily wait until something like traumatic happens in your life either, because I just feel like for us to really get through life, you need certain types of people in your life, and I feel like a therapist is one. Not saying you got to see a therapist every week for the rest of your life,
Right.
but you may see a therapist for a certain amount of weeks or months, and then you may have a period of time where you're not seeing one every single week or every month, and you may feel like, okay, I think I need to have some more sessions. It was kind of like off and on, but I think more people, I'm glad there's more conversations about it, because a lot of people, definitely with everything going on this year, I think more people are finding ways to cope with different things. And you can't just do it by yourself. Even sometimes talking to a close friend, they may not be yeah, it's kind of venting, talking, but you may need more than talking to your friend. You may need to talk to a therapist. And just hearing more men talk about it, especially Black men, I think it helps other Black men feel more comfortable starting to talk about it just with their inner circle, but also talking with it with a professional, because it is hard to open up, especially if that's how you live your life. Like if you've been doing something your whole life, it's not easy just to flip the switch. But when you have other people like sharing your stories about how therapy helped them and how it transformed their life, I think more people are more excited or have more confidence in at least seeing one to see how it may work for them. You may have to interview a couple of different therapists, see which therapist you connect with the best. But it is important to get those emotions out, because like, sometimes people say you have to be mindful of people who are either like quiet all the time or hold stuff in all the time. Like for me, I don't get angry. Like it takes a lot for me to get like really upset.
Me too.
And then like when when I do, it's like not good. But I don't like nowadays, like I'm so into positivity and peace. Like I don't even allow people to make me angry. So if I get angry, you had to have done something like off the wall for
crazy.
Me to go off.
You had to have done something crazy.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of energy out of you to get upset and to talk loud and holler and just get super emotional. Like I'm at a point now where I can be emotional in positive ways or a negative way if I experienced something that wasn't great. But for me to get like upset, it has to take a whole lot. So I think as we get older, therapy helps us have boundaries and be more selective with who we allow in our inner circles and
Hmm.
even how we respond to certain things. Like, there's going to be somebody else that passes away that's close to us one
Right.
day.
Right.
And I feel like not that it's going to be easy or easier
Hmm.
when you navigate through certain problems or issues when you've had therapy. And
Yeah.
I just like that we talked more about this because just like you said, the therapist asks you, have you ever shared this before? And I think sometimes you can tell when someone hasn't really talked to, like, because you said you just let it all out
Yeah.
to her and just, whatever you shared with her, she probably was like, wow, he probably haven't said this. And if you did, it probably wasn't often that you share that type of
Right.
thing. So
Right.
now, do you feel like you are more comfortable sharing private and personal experiences and feelings with people that's in your inner circle?
Um. Yeah. Yeah. I'm. I won't say that I'm more. I'm more. Yeah. I'm more open about if someone were to ask me. I'm still not to a point where I would just take the kind of initiative to be expressive.
Yeah.
But if somebody asks me now, I will give them the real answer now.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't always like that. Like you said, I would always be like, "Oh, I'm good," or like
Yeah.
whatever. Like, but now if I know someone's really like, because sometimes people just ask you on a whim.
And
But
they don't
if
really
I
care.
yeah, but if I know somebody's really asking me,
Yeah.
then yeah, I'm definitely more open now and transparent about certain things than I have been, and it's really in a lot of cases. And I will say though, it's different between like if a man asks me and a woman asks me.
Yeah.
Like if a
Hmm.
man asks me, then I'm gonna put it in man language, if you will,
Mm.
and I'm gonna give it like straight, like straight shooter, right?
Yeah.
Um, but for women, because I think this is from just being raised by a single mom,
Yeah.
and just kind of where my value system is with women, because when I was really young, me and my mom was living with my grandmother.
Mm.
Then when I was like 3 or 4, we moved out, and then so it was just my mom. But my whole life, I've seen women take care of things, so I have
Hmm.
a certain level of care and
Yeah.
respect. So when I share things with women or being open and transparent, if a woman were to ask me something or anything, I'm still open and expressive, but I'm also still cognizant that you all are a little bit more emotionally receptive
Mm.
than men are.
Yeah.
So I could say something that if I'm just in man talk, it's like, okay, he ain't gonna take nothing from that. But if I say that to a woman, she was like, what? Like, how could you say that to me?
Right.
Um, and so, but it's no malice. It's just
Yeah.
that I'm still I still am. It's still somewhat of a filter, is because it's a respect level that
Yeah.
I just wouldn't say things as bluntly to a
Hmm.
woman as I would to a man. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to share more either way than I might have before. Like if like one of my homeboys was asking me, like he having some relationship issues and like couldn't
Hmm.
figure out why he was kind of still feeling, he felt weak
Mm.
for for a weaker for kind of going back to a situation that really wasn't the best for him.
Yeah.
And like I hear that a lot from women, like,
Yeah.
but when he told me as a man, like
Mm.
I was like, man, I was like, man, what?
You
Like,
know how y'all do.
but because we just have a certain
Yeah.
level of trust and a bond, he didn't take it in any sort of way. He was like, man, I needed you to check me like that. Like, I don't
Mm.
know. I was like, I kind of, I guess I felt guilty
Hmm.
and because I felt guilty, like I rekindled the situation that shouldn't have been rekindled.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so and I knew him asking me that was a big step to begin with.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm like, I didn't ask in the moment. I'm like, he might not even have a therapist. So I
Yeah.
might be right now his acting therapist and I don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but at the same time, I told him what he needed to hear, but I
Mm-hmm.
said it in a straight, direct way. So he knew I wasn't BSing him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was also a level of accountability in what I said
Mm.
to him because we are both men.
Yeah.
It's hard. I can't hold a woman accountable because I don't know the pressures in the value system and I don't understand a woman's
Mm-hmm.
value system completely. So I can't, from an accountability standpoint, it stops at a certain point.
Yeah.
I know how you wired, my guy. Like I know. I
Yeah.
walk these walks too.
Yeah.
I can have a little higher level of accountability with you because I can
Mm-hmm.
relate to you a little bit more than I can relate to the experience of a black woman.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but I still would be open and transparent with more with
Mm-hmm.
male friends and women friends.
Yeah. And I think just us having this conversation gives other people more confidence in being able to share. Just with sharing anything, I know it's not always easy because I struggle with that, but
Yeah.
going to therapy or just having conversations with other people that I trust, not that I feel like people just going to just tell me what I want to hear. Like,
Hmm.
if I actually share something with someone and I want some feedback, I want people to tell me the truth or tell me what they think.
Yeah.
I think we need people like that in our lives too. So I think there's a need for therapists, but I think there's a need for us to have close people in our lives that we can call or text or FaceTime or whatever. And just, even if it's like a little 5-minute check in, just like something instead of just always holding it in,
Yeah.
because when it comes time for you to cry or for you to get upset, it's just going to be like times 100 because
Huge.
you've been holding it in
It's
like for so
huge.
long. And then once you get it out, just the way you feel, you're going to just be like eventually you're going to feel like good because you like got it
Hmm.
out, especially if it's like I don't know if you ever had a moment where you like got a good cry out. I know men don't like to talk about
No, but
themselves
no,
crying.
I've gotten one before though. No, for sure.
Yeah, but I think at least once in our lifetimes, we've
Hmm.
had a moment, men and women, where we've just had a good, ugly cry that we just had to get out, whether if it was something with personal or professional. But I just think sometimes it can be overwhelming. So that's why I feel like it's really good to
Right.
talk with people. And when it comes to talking about money and talking about business and
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, it's just so many other feelings and emotions that come up with dealing with that type of stuff. So if you don't
Right.
already have some type of system, not like a perfect system, but just having an outlet, like a
Right.
healthy way to get stuff out, then it's going to be very difficult to really grow and like in a positive way if you don't always have a way to like get it out. Because I've let stuff boil over and I was like, no, that's not a way to live, Cleo. Not at all. So I'm glad you, as a man, a black man, is talking about how that helps you getting it out, and other men are going to see you talking about this, hear you talking about it, and see that it was a benefit to you. Now you see the
Right.
value, just like you said
Right.
before, you didn't see the value in
Hmm.
acknowledging or feeling certain ways, but now you see that there's a reason why you should.
Yeah. And one last note about that whole
Hmm.
dynamic
Yeah.
is the I'm sitting here trying to recall who told me this, and I can't remember who it was, but I still live by it every day right now. Is that when you're thinking about your life and you look at the things that have happened, and sometimes, and a lot of times, we look back at disappointments and things that didn't
Hmm.
work out, right? And
Yeah.
there's an emotional pain that comes with things that you either did wrong or didn't work out or whatever it may happen.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I learned, kind of on this side of of therapy, if you will, like over the last like 2 or 3 years, is that you only have two hands, right? This is the way
Mm-hmm.
to think about it, where everybody can relate to this. You have two hands, and in your
Mm-hmm.
two hands, you can decide what you choose to carry.
Mm.
And one of the things that has happened in our community, when I say our community, the Black community in America, is that we're always reminded of the past. We always are reminded of disappointments or shortcomings or just things that didn't work for us as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, I mean, I don't even want to list them all, but there's a lot of things that we refer to.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to have the courage
Mm.
to decide that you don't want to carry the pain anymore. However, when you make that decision,
Mm-hmm.
there are going to be a lot of Black people that are choosing to carry it, that are going to look at you differently because you decided to sit those things down and pick up something else.
Mm.
And usually when you sit that pain down, you
Yeah.
now have two hands where you can catch some blessings, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the plight of our community, that is the challenge. Is that yes, we have not been completely valued in this country as
Mm-hmm.
citizens, as people. I You can't tell me that anything different. I know history too, right? But
Yeah.
one of the things that led me to have more positive experiences in the moment and in the future
Mm-hmm.
was I decided to sit down or lay down or let go of all of the pains in my past that are still painful. That, like, it doesn't change that certain things aren't painful. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But to move through life and not have that be the thing that you take everywhere with you.
Mm.
And when you do that, again, you're gonna have family members, friends look at you funny, co-workers look at you funny when you decide that, oh, I don't want to be hurt anymore. Like,
Mm.
I know racism is real, but racism doesn't even make me mad anymore.
Mm.
Like, because racism can only stop me if I pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And that's a reality that a lot of us haven't grown into being able to live out. And to, if
Yeah.
we're going to be honest, like, it's a lot of us that lean on these social ills as reasons why we don't have.
Yeah.
And if you do, it will be the reason. But if you don't, it won't be the reason. And it's actually pretty simple how it works. And
Yeah.
so I and this is a work in progress. I'm not perfect, but I
Mm-hmm.
in my life have been working on letting go and sitting down the pain and not traveling with it, not
Mm-hmm.
carrying it around with me. There's a certain always going to be things I don't forget about that are always going to be a reminisce and kind of be a painful to think about. But
Yeah.
when I leave my door, when I go into a place of business, when I go shopping, when I travel, that's not the experience that is determining who shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Who shows up is me, and I'm not going to have the hurt that happened years ago come with me because I
Yeah.
want somebody else to get the best version of me, and
Mm.
the best version of me is not the resentful one.
Yeah.
So I was able to really, like, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but I was able to really think about it in that perspective
Mm-hmm.
and to say, okay, there are still days where I'm like, oh, I hate Trump. Well, now that I mean, he's done now, but it was
Yeah.
like there's a and those things are,
Mm-hmm.
you can easily turn into pain. Like,
Yes.
and I'm like, yeah, like, I can't stand how he makes decisions and how he operates, but at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, like, what does Trump really affect in my life on a daily basis for real? Like,
Yeah.
what does he really affect right now? And it's
Mm-hmm.
really, I couldn't identify a lot of things, and I realized, wow, like, whether it's media or whoever it may be, could be
Mm-hmm.
convincing you to
Yeah.
hold on and carry pain. But a lot of
That's
the
a big
things
one.
that are the greater things that we want in our lives will only come when we let go of it.
Mm.
And that's I'm working on that all the time around the
Yeah.
clock. And it's like I don't think you'll ever are done with this process, but the
Yeah.
better you get at it, the positive things you'll see happen in your life. And I'm just a firm believer of that.
Yes, the power of letting go. Like you said, it's, a work in progress. We just get stronger and stronger, and we're more able to do that as time passes on. But I think it's really important to share that with all of us, with me and with everyone listening. I think we try to find value in holding on to stuff. Like um we feel like we have to hold on for onto things more than we need to. But like you said, you sat there and was like, what is he actually affecting in my life on a daily basis? I'm riled up, getting upset for what? Yes, sometimes there's moments where we're like, okay, you may have a moment where you like, you know what, this guy just,
Right,
but I
right.
just feel like that is true. Like you do have to have a moment where you're like, you know what, thinking about how it's making you feel, how is this really serving you? Like, where am I getting with this type of mindset or these feelings and emotions? So let me just let it go and like focus on something else. Even for me, when I have certain feelings and emotions about things, I have to remind myself, like, Cleo, okay, if it makes me upset or if I feel like I got to cry and let it out, even if I'm not crying, even if I'm just feeling like not really good about something, I have to like sit in those feelings, acknowledge them. But then I don't want to stay there either. Like, what's next? Like, what else am I going to focus on? Because staying here is not going to really serve me. And I feel like more of us should really acknowledge our feelings, because I think it's easier to avoid them until you can't avoid it
Mhm.
anymore. Like until you just
Right.
boil over and you have to acknowledge them. But I think that's why I'm really happy that more people are talking about it and more people are wanting to learn more about mental health and how to relieve stress in healthy ways and how to really talk about your feelings and how it's going to help you throughout your life. But we're all still learning and growing. Like no one ever reaches a level like, I'm fixed, like
Right,
I'm
right,
done.
right.
Like I never need therapy for the rest of my
And
life.
that,
I never need to
yeah,
have any, I don't need to share any more stories. Like no, like this is like it's like it's like it keeps going
it's a
on and on
yeah,
and
it's a
on. Like
cycle.
yes, it is. And when I first started seeing a therapist in June, a friend of mine was like, well, how long are you gonna see them for? A couple weeks? And I was like, no, like other people that I
No.
know that have done therapy like over the years, they're like, sometimes people go to therapy, depending on what's going on. Sometimes you go to therapy for some months, sometimes it's some
Hmm.
years. Some people say, I just see a therapist off and on. Like it's not you go for a week or
Right,
2 weeks and then
right,
that's it. Like nobody is fixed.
right, right,
And I feel like we're always growing in life. I just feel like that's what life is about. Because as soon as you reach the next level, there's going to be a new set of challenges, a new set of experiences that you've probably never dealt with before. Now you got to learn how to navigate through your life and deal with the new experiences. So I just think people need to realize no one is perfect. None of us are.
right.
We're all a work in progress. So you need tools, resources, and people in your life to really help you elevate. And that's something that I learned in my own life that Cleo, you are not superwoman. I think because I was a teen mom really early. And that goes to what you mentioned earlier in the podcast when you were saying how things that happened in the past, it doesn't have to be like remembered as this traumatic experience. Like there is things I'm grateful for and learn from that experience. But since I was a single mom and a teen mom for so long, I'm just used to doing stuff by myself. So
Right,
that's always my mindset. But now I realize it's power in connecting with other people.
right.
And it's okay to need help and want help and ask for help. And that there's people out there who are down for collaborating or helping you with something,
Hmm.
them teaching you what you know, and then just us having this conversation right now, I feel that it's very helpful for me. I hope it's very helpful for you too. And I think other people that are going to be listening to it, it just helps. And that's the whole reason why I started the podcast, is having more conversations. So I'm glad you said something about mental health, because it plays a huge role in in all these different areas of our
Right,
lives, because
right.
I feel like we need to start talking about it. And when you mention about being judged or what other people are going to think, I think we all have had those moments where we're like, well, what are people going to say about me, think about me? But it's like,
Mhm.
when you don't worry about what other people think, your life is going to be so much more joyful and happy, because I feel like no matter what, somebody somewhere is going to say something.
Always,
So
always.
it doesn't matter how good of a person you are. It doesn't matter how successful. It doesn't matter what type of mistake you made or something that you did people may think is negative. Like,
Mhm.
somebody somewhere is always going to have something to say, whether they say it publicly or in
Right.
private. So I just feel like we all should just do what we feel is best for us, in our personal and professional lives, and not worry what others think. Because a lot of times the people who always have something to say don't really have nothing really going on in their own life
They
anyway.
don't. That's why they always got something to say. They don't have nothing else, they don't
Yeah.
have nothing else going on.
Yeah. And then being okay that everybody is not going to support you or like what you're doing. And that's okay too. Cause, I don't like everything and everybody either. I think we all like what we like. But
Mhm.
I think there's enough of us out there that we can have, just like the community that you and Ashley have. There's people who love the Wealth Builders community. So we're gravitating towards you all so we can do better in our lives. So I feel like there's room for all of us, no matter what we're trying to do. But I think the therapy and mental health being a top of the conversations forever basically is
Yeah.
going to be needed, and it just becomes easier to talk about it. I know for me, it's easier for me to talk about it more now. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that more men are being outspoken just on social media. When I see people doing like Instagram lives or podcasts, or just, having these conversations, and other men are tuning in more, because it's like, oh, it's not just a panel of women talking about how Black men
Right.
should think deeper or be more emotional or see a therapist. Now there's other Black men, like well-established Black men, that know what they're talking about in their fields, and they're saying how therapy helps them. So that's why I'm so happy that you mentioned it, because it's important, and I think it really helps us have a quality of life in all the areas. Not perfect, but just have
Mhm.
the quality of life that we desire.
Right, right. No, yeah, I think it's a very underrated topic.
Yeah.
It might just be the most important topic in our community, but we
Yeah.
all know we can't stop life just to tackle it. We got to continue to
Mm-hmm.
live through and kind of manage it as we go.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I it's been the solution. Well, I won't say solution because I really didn't have a problem. It's been the gateway to all the things that I have now in life.
Mm-hmm.
That now that it's happened this way, I'm not sure what else could have got me to this point rather
Mm.
than the way that I was able to change my perspective on the things in life over the last, I'd say, half a decade, over like the last 5 years. So many things, so many ways I looked at life have changed and evolved in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now, kind of just looking at what's going on currently in life and what seems to be on the horizon of life,
Yeah.
um, I couldn't, I don't know if how else I would have gotten here if I didn't have that experience of just like being forced to deal with my emotions in that part of my life. Like, you could have the formula to a successful business, or you could know
Yeah.
exactly how to do something, but unless you have that EQ
Mm-hmm.
and that emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you like out of all the men that like personally or
Mhm.
professionally, do you feel more of them are also talking more and seeing a therapist, or you still feel like it's a long way to go? Like,
It's a long way to go.
mm-hmm.
Um, I'll be honest. I'll say it's a long way to go.
Yeah.
And it's a long way to go because when I think about the notion of taking this step,
Yeah.
you also have to have the context of where I am in life right now.
Yeah.
Like I I'm aware of the fact that I'm probably in the top 5% of Black men, social,
Yeah.
economically, education wise,
Mm-hmm.
general experiences, travel experiences, everything.
Yeah.
Like, probably, I just put that number there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even in this space of other colleagues and friends that I have that I feel are in the same space, they're kind of iffy about it. So
Yeah.
I know the individual who might not have been exposed to a lot of other things in life, who might not have the education, who might not have traveled the world, who might not have a business or be an entrepreneur, and that it's even harder for someone that's in the thick of it like that to
Mm-hmm.
think about this being a viable option because it seems so esoteric.
Yeah.
And when you're in the thick of it, it's like, what? I'm gonna talk to somebody, my life gonna get better. What you talking about? Like what you like? That don't make
Yeah.
sense. That ain't. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. That's not how the math work around here.
Yeah.
And so it it's something where I am open. I'm completely fine and comfortable with talking about the fact I took that step.
Yeah.
But I also know that how, as far as how men think,
Mm-hmm.
that we are conditioned to be seers before believers, when
Mm-hmm.
actually we actually got to be believers before we're seers.
Yeah.
And to make that crossover, when you see what the hood look like, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard. And and it's like, what? Like, look at what I see every day. I'm supposed to believe what? And
Yeah.
and so there's a tug of war. And like people like me, I've realized, kind of like I'm just now realizing this in my life, that I'm probably the only person, for the people that I know, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm the only
Yeah.
person that, as far as from the community I'm from, and like that has the leverage, the respect, and the overall, I guess, acceptance from
Mm.
community members to even suggest that to someone and
Mm-hmm.
they take it serious. Like if I go back
Yeah.
to my hood right now today and I talk to the little homies on the block that are like the little brothers and little cousins and nephews of all my friends
Yeah.
that are maybe long gone at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
they know, they like, oh, that was my older brother. Like
Yeah.
they and I go back to them right now and they know I seen everything.
Yeah.
They know that. And I tell them, yo, you should go to therapy and like start talking about what you see every day on the block.
Yeah.
And he gonna look at me like, Rob,
You're like, what?
I mess with you, but I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And that's somebody I know personally.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
and they know, okay, like he been in my shoes, but I don't know what he talking about right now.
Right.
And and so when you think about it like that,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a long way for us to go,
Yeah.
because that's me influencing somebody that knows that I can relate to them.
You're
But
right.
somebody who don't know me from nothing, and they gonna, man, get out of here,
It's gonna
man.
be kind of hard, when you
Right.
think about
And
that.
and so it is a longer way to go. However, I definitely always think it's possible. But the one thing I think will help with the needle moving is for Black men that's in my space, in that top 5%, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
rappers, athletes, successful business owners,
Mm-hmm.
educate, like that what America would call elite, which I just call well informed,
Yeah.
like or well endowed with talent or a gift, that
Mm-hmm.
that until all of us
Mm-hmm.
start to say, like you just created a platform for, start to say that, hey, I'm from where you from, and I started doing this, and it started helping.
Yeah.
And when LeBron comes out and says he has a therapist, and when Lil Baby comes out and says he has a therapist, and when Meek Mill comes out and says he has a once we collectively start to say, hey, this is actually happening and this is helping us,
Yeah.
then the needle will start to move.
Right.
But until we get comfortable enough in our Black manhood to go to the mountaintop and shout that, until we're comfortable enough to do that, it's going to be a tug of war.
Yeah, it is a huge one.
And so I hope that
Yeah.
me sharing this and then other individuals and that are visible in the Black community, visible individuals start to say, hey, no, like I did start working on my mental health. Even if you're an athlete, I did go to a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
Like whatever it may be, to show the people that look up to you or that want to be like you or emulate you that, okay, I got talent, I got a gift, but I still got to work on my mind too. And making that a thing
Yeah.
is a lot of that is gonna rest on the influential people in our communities.
Yeah. Like you said, shouting it out from the mountaintops, like more voices need to put it out there for more people to really like make a move on it. And I just think about where I'm from the hood in South Nashville, West Nashville, and like just like you said, if you went back to your neighborhood, I just envision myself walking back. Like I've went back to my neighborhoods, several times, but just telling someone you should see a therapist, it's going to be automatic block. Like, trying to justify why it's not it's not an option for me. Right. Like, what you mean I need a therapist? What you trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, hold up. I'm trying to help you here. Just trying to let you know how this helped me. It may or may not help you, but I think it might be good to try it out. That's what I want more people to think about it that way. It's just trying something out. And like when you say you were defensive, like really trying it out, not going and being like, this is what we're going to talk about. But that's natural because you don't trust that person yet. So of course you have to find someone you connect with and that you feel may have your best interest. But yeah, you're right. I think it is a long way to go.
Yeah.
And more of us have to talk. And even though women may see a therapist more than men, I feel like even with us, we can go see a therapist, but sometimes we still won't fully open up and give the real, all the information. We're just, women, we love to talk. So sometimes we're just talking and then we realize we going deep. And then we realize, you know what? I didn't really dig deep like I thought I did. And then you have these breakthroughs when you have certain conversations with a therapist or other people, and you realize, you know what? This is why I still have these habits, or I'm still doing things a certain way. It's because I didn't fully forgive myself or accept certain things or heal from certain things. So that's why I feel like a therapist really helps you have those aha moments, like you said, or the breakthroughs. So I definitely appreciate you taking this extra time to talk about this because it's very, very important. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be blessed by this conversation.
I hope so. I really I mean, I didn't think we were going to talk about this today, but
I know
everything
hey,
is
meant to be.
Yeah, it's meant to be. And I know at least one person, that's all I always say, is at least one person's life is going to be different from hearing this.
Yes, most definitely. And I'm, like I said, we're both still learning and growing. And even I still felt inspired and learned from it as well. When I do these episodes, these podcasts, I am still learning. I'm still a work in progress. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to not only share information with others, but valuable information that people can actually use in their own lives.
No, definitely. It's I enjoyed this conversation, and I mean the money part, the finance part,
Right.
the life part, but then also the emotional health,
Yes.
mental health part about it as well.
Yes.
And I know I'm completely 100% grateful for this conversation today. And
Yes.
I'm actually what I also love is I love listening back to these. So
Yes.
I think this is going to be helpful just to listen back to
Yeah.
and be able to kind of take it all in because it's always different when you hear it.
Oh yes, most definitely. And I'm happy I got the Rob Boyd exclusive
No, that's
after
the
the
CC
regular.
exclusive. That's the Cleo Children's exclusive. Like
Oh yes,
the
CC
CC.
exclusive. I love that. You know what? See, you helping me out with some ideas over here. I get some
Yeah,
exclusive
yeah.
extra conversation.
Right, right, right.
But yes, I really do appreciate it. And I definitely love talking with you and talking about all things, all about life, because it's not just about the money, right? It's about
No, no,
all
no.
areas. And I just hope that everyone out there that's listening, that you took some notes and actually thinking about things that you can change in your own life. And if you've never seen a therapist, or if you have difficulty talking with people about it, just find at least one person to start that way that you trust, that you can talk to. And if you want to see a therapist, I will list some options in the show notes so that you can research and explore and find some options that may work best for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate that, Rob. And until next time, because it will be a next time, because I
Until
feel
next
like there's
time.
so many other conversations to have, but I definitely appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You can be financially free with Cleo.